Have you ever heard of the Night Witches? It sounds like something out of a fairy tale, but this was the real-life nickname for the Soviet Union's all-female 508th Night Bomber Regiment. And among these legendary women was a pilot whose story is so incredible, it feels like it's been pulled straight from a Hollywood blockbuster. Her name was Yekaterina Budanova, but her friends called her Katya. Born in a small village, Katya's early life was humble. She worked in an aircraft factory in Moscow, but her eyes were always on the sky. Every day she watched the planes take off and land, dreaming of the day she'd be in the cockpit. She joined a local flying club, pouring every spare moment into learning how to fly. Her instructors quickly saw she wasn't just a dreamer, she was a natural. Her hands were steady, her instincts sharp. By the time the war broke out, Katya was already an accomplished flight instructor. But teaching others to fly wasn't enough when her country was under attack. Women weren't initially allowed in combat roles, but the fierce determination of women like Katya and her mentor, Marina Raskova, changed everything. They fought for the right to fight and won. In 1942, Katya was assigned to a fighter regiment, a role almost exclusively held by men. Imagine the scene. A young woman, barely in her 20s, walking onto an airfield dominated by grizzled male veterans. The skepticism was palpable. Some pilots openly doubted that a woman could handle the brutal G-forces and the split-second life-or-death decisions of a dogfight. They saw her as a liability, a piece of propaganda. But Katya wasn't there to make a statement. She was there to fly, and to win. She was assigned a Yak-1 fighter plane, a nimble but unforgiving machine. Her first few missions were patrols, escorts, the safer jobs. But even then, her squadron mates started to notice something different about her. She flew with a quiet confidence, her movements precise and economical. She wasn't reckless, she was calculated. She saw the sky not as an empty space, but as a three-dimensional chessboard, and she was always thinking 3 moves ahead. Her chance to prove the doubters wrong came during the brutal Battle of Stalingrad. The sky was a chaotic storm of steel, smoke, and fire. On one particular mission, Katya was flying as a wingman, tasked with protecting her squadron leader. Suddenly, they were ambushed by a group of German Messerschmitt Bf-109s, one of the most feared fighters of the war. The air crackled with radio chatter and the roar of engines. Her leader was immediately pinned down, 2 enemy fighters on his tail. Standard procedure was to break away and save yourself. But that wasn't Katya's way. Without a moment's hesitation, she dove her Yak-1 straight into the fray. With a series of breathtaking maneuvers that pushed her aircraft to its absolute limit, she positioned herself behind one of the attackers. A short, controlled burst from her machine guns, and the Bf-109 erupted into a ball of flame. But there was no time to celebrate. The second enemy pilot, stunned by the sudden loss of his wingman, turned his attention to her. What followed was a deadly ballet in the sky. The 2 planes twisted and turned, each pilot trying to gain the upper hand. The German pilot was experienced, aggressive, but Katya was smarter. She used her Yak's superior maneuverability at lower altitudes, luring him into a tight turn he couldn't escape. Again, her aim was true. The second Messerschmitt spiraled towards the earth. She had just saved her commander and scored her first 2 victories. When she landed, the silence on the airfield was deafening. The men who had doubted her now looked at her with a mixture of shock and awe. She wasn't just the female pilot anymore. She was a fighter ace in the making. This incredible feat was just the beginning. Katya became known for her courage and tactical brilliance. She wasn't just a pilot, she was a hunter. She earned the title of Free Hunter, a prestigious role given only to the best pilots, allowing them to roam the skies and actively seek out enemy aircraft. She often flew alongside another female ace, Lydia Litviak, and together they became a legendary and feared duo. Her reputation grew with every victory. But the story that cemented her legend, the one that sounds almost unbelievable, took place in the summer of 1943 over the fields of Ukraine. Katya was on a solo reconnaissance mission, flying deep into enemy territory. Her job was to observe and report, not to engage. But fate had other plans. As she was returning to base, she spotted them. a full squadron of 12 German Ju-87 Stuka dive bombers, flying in formation, likely on their way to attack Soviet ground troops. They were flying without a fighter escort, a fatal mistake. For any other pilot, facing a dozen enemy aircraft alone would be suicide. The logical choice was to stay hidden, report their position, and get back to safety. But Katya saw 12 bombers heading for her comrades on the ground. She couldn't just watch. In that moment, she wasn't just a pilot anymore. She was a one-woman air force. She dove out of the sun, a classic attack tactic to blind the enemy gunners. Her first pass was a blur of speed and precision. She targeted the lead bomber, her machine guns tearing through its fuselage. The bomber faltered, smoke pouring from its engine, before plunging from the sky. The formation broke in chaos. The Stukas were not designed for dogfighting. They were slow and clumsy compared to her Yak-1, but there were 11 of them, each armed with a rear-facing machine gun. The sky around her filled with tracer fire. Katya didn't panic. She flew like a phantom, weaving through the hail of bullets. She made another pass, taking out a second bomber, then a third. The German pilots, disoriented and terrified by this lone, ferocious attacker, began to scatter, jettisoning their bombs harmlessly over empty fields to gain speed and escape. She pursued them relentlessly. She wasn't just scaring them off. She was systematically dismantling an entire enemy squadron. A fourth bomber fell to her guns, then a fifth. By the time her ammunition ran dry, the sky was clear. The remaining bombers had fled in terror. She had single-handedly taken down 5 enemy bombers and scattered the rest, saving countless lives on the ground below. She returned to base, her plane riddled with bullet holes, but she was unharmed. The report of her engagement was met with disbelief until ground observers and retreating German radio chatter confirmed it. She wasn't just the pilot, she had just taken down an entire enemy air squadron. Tragically, just a few weeks after this incredible feat, Katya's luck ran out. On July 19, 1943, while escorting other planes, her squadron was ambushed by a superior force of German fighters. Outnumbered 3-1, she fought valiantly, reportedly shooting down 2 more enemy planes before her own was critically hit. She managed to crash-land her plane in a field, but she did not survive. She was only 26 years old. By the end of her short but brilliant career, Yekaterina Budanova was credited with at least 11 solo and group aerial victories, making her one of the world's 2 female fighter aces, alongside her friend Lydia Litviak. She was a true hero, a pioneer who shattered stereotypes and proved that courage has no gender. Her story is a powerful reminder that sometimes the most extraordinary heroes are the ones you least expect. She wasn't just a pilot, she was a legend of the skies. Thank you so much for watching. If you were as inspired by Katya's story as I was, please hit that like button. And subscribe for more stories of incredible people from history. Let me know in the comments who else I should cover. Until next time, stay curious.